the individual, Eric, really has to become a practitioner. Again, you have to model your behavior to lead the rest of the organization, as small as it may be. Because if you don't do that, then you're going to reach a point where they're liking it and they go, wait, I have a question. And then Eric can't answer it because he hasn't done it. So this is, again, it's a little counterintuitive to the way we maybe run business, but now is the time for the leaders to push their chips in the middle, maybe get some individual training and really become, part of the indoctrinated to say, wow, okay, this is, I've got an optimism about this. We're going to use it the right way. We're going to be somewhat careful. We're also going to take some chances, kind of a combination. But I just don't see how you do it effectively if you're not leading the way.
This podcast is brought to you by Fast Slow Motion, a team of expert consultants that help growing businesses operate with clarity using systems like Salesforce, HubSpot, and Claude. If your systems feel like they're holding you back instead of moving you forward, visit fastslowmotion.com to see how we can help. Welcome to the Fast Slow Motion podcast, where we discuss strategies, ideas, and insights about how to build a business you love while enjoying your life. I'm your host, Eric Housh, and I'm joined today by my co-host, Zack Terry, Fast Slow Motion's Director of AI. Zack, great to have you on the show.
Eric, it's always a good day when we get to hang out, but even more so when we get to hang out with the guest that we have today.
The guest today, I'm super excited. Henry Hayes, partner, AI strategy practice lead at Sparktown, co-founder of Disrupt Ready, and one of the most active AI practitioners working with growing businesses in the country. Henry's worked with more than 200 companies on AI adoption and implementation, has built an applied AI curriculum at LSU, and has delivered over 150 keynote presentations to executive audiences on AI and business strategy. Henry, great to have you on the show.
It's awesome to be here, guys. I love doing this. I love to chop it up with you guys, and let's get going.
Cool. Well, Henry, you've worked with companies across banking, healthcare, energy, construction, high growth businesses on AI adoption and implementation, industries that are pretty disparate, couldn't be more different from each other. When you look across all of that wide swath of engagements, what's the most consistent thing you see holding businesses back from actually making AI work?
Great question, Eric. It's the H word, the human. I mean, so human executives are in all those businesses. And ironically, it's so interesting when you really level up and go maybe 50,000 foot, look in. Is it a wonder that the most disruptive, fastest arriving technology in the history of mankind is the least misunderstood, the most misunderstood? So whether it's any of the industries you mentioned, you know what none of them say to me, Eric and Zack? Not one of them says, Henry, our industry is always at the front of the line to change. Everybody thinks that theirs is the back, right? So that right off the bat, to me, that tells me that in their minds, they're giving themselves a little bit of a pass to say, hey, we always we let other people go first and we're going to wait. And boy, it's a tell right off the bat, guys, that I think the biggest impediment we all have is looking in the mirror, because we're not used to having to adopt and change this fast. Look, we were all around when the internet launched in the late 90s, and there were a lot of folks who said it wouldn't last and it's not going to stick around. Well, it did, of course. And in hindsight, that looks ridiculous. But at the time, there were a lot of naysayers, just like there are a lot of naysayers today. The difference is you don't have that time anymore. I mean, we get launches and innovations weekly now, and you guys do this for a living. We do this for a living. It's hard enough for us to keep our fingers on it. So, pity the poor bank executive who, look, it's hard enough to run a bank. They have a family, they have a social life, right? Like, oh, you want 5 more hours a week to learn something called Python? Like, not happening. So I think it's the humans get in the way.
So when you're working with those businesses, Henry, have you found that there is a moment in an engagement where something clicks with those H words, where the humans have maybe an aha moment?
100%, Zack. And we try to get there quicker. Great question. So it used to be, look, a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, if Eric wrote his wife her birthday card in Shakespearean tone using ChatGPT, that was cute and it was fun. And he would have bragged to the neighbors and maybe showed it at the baseball game. But now we say, guys, we're chasing 3 things. And then let's drop the email stuff. I want the boring, the mundane, and the tedious in your Monday through Friday job. And if you have to put earmuffs on and the boss can't listen and put you on truth serum, fine. But everybody's got this glut in their Monday through Friday where it's like, man, if Eric could take that away, he'd be the king of the Mardi Gras Day parade, right? So that's when you go, oh, wait a minute. And a great analogy here in business, Zach, is if Zach, Eric, and Henry are going to open up a bank and we're like, hey, you know what? I've got the money. Let's do it. Let's get into the banking game. And we're right about to sign the papers. And Eric goes, hey, guys, we don't have a mobile option. Zach and Henry would be like, well, Eric, that would have been nice to know when we said, let's open a bank. Because can you imagine not having a mobile option today? When Mrs. Housh is, honey, I'm back in an hour. I've got to go get on the highway. I got to go find the Capital One bank line. I got to sign it, put in the vacuum tubey thing, wave at Sally, get my mint in my receipt, and come home. No, she's going to take a picture in 6 seconds. So that was an aha type of moment, Zach, in that industry. In AI, to me, it's, wow, an underwriter at an insurance company, that 30% deep dive in that policy, that's 101 pages, we just gave her back 49 minutes. And she knows in her mind, I'm never going to choose to do it that way again. So, but guess what? That's a boring, mundane, and tedious task for her. So we like to focus on the stuff that's not sizzly and start there because the humans can get their head around.
Yeah, Zach, this was a conversation we had last week, right?
I
Let
feel like
AI
that's
do
a
the laundry.
conversation we have every day.
It's like, let's not boil the ocean. Let's look for the simple stuff, the quick wins, and things like that. Henry, let's stay there for a minute because there's a lot of talk. It seems like LinkedIn is just a super noisy place these days. Every consultant, every conference is talking about AI strategy, but strategy and execution are two very different things. So where do you see that strategy conversation usually break down when it hits the real world?
Another great question. It reminds me, Eric, of, remember when like all the doctors and they had a billboard and had an F on their billboard? It's like, okay, you have a Facebook page. And it's like the doctors were like, okay, well, now what? So what? Like, what do we do now? It reminds me of that. I think it's a couple things. One, it's great. You can understand what an LLM is, and maybe you know what a GPU is, and you maybe even know the difference between Claude and Grok and Gemini and ChatGPT. Okay, all that's great. But is there an intelligent, well-designed, thoughtful strategy at the business? And here's why there isn't. Because none of the executives, even the CTOs and the CIOs, and those folks aren't trained in this. This is a new way of thinking. So when the responsibility comes to one of those folks, they kind of do this and duck under the table and maybe give an excuse as to why they shouldn't do it now. Oh, it's not safe, our data. Because they don't know how to do it. And so we always say that really starts with a really good assessment. Where's the business? What technology are you using? Might you be overpaying for some technology? Hint, hint, yes. What does your data look like? Is it ready? Because if everything else is ready and your data is not ready, you are burning piles of $100 bills on the interstate. You might as well don't do it. And so I think with an intelligent design, Eric, people can get to a good pilot and a good use case, but those strategies are typically not existent.
You're talking about like having a really good plan and having some good things in place, but have you ever found it to be the case that maybe a company is over planning or they're stuck in analysis paralysis? And how do you get them to start moving?
Once daily, Zach. And so good news, bad news. The good news is when there's 19 ideas across 6 verticals in the business, you look at them and go, okay, like, yes, all that's possible. But it reminds me of the Indian proverb, he who chases 2 rabbits catches neither, right? So we always say, look, let's go micro, micro, micro. Okay, let's take a really little baby step. Maybe that's, and look, we always say, do you have an AI usage policy? Do Zach and Eric know what they can and can't do here? Because if you don't, we always say, look, book one thing. Your employees, regardless of how old they are, they're bringing their own AI to work. So what that means is without a usage policy, you don't know what's walking out the back door, and that's not good. But it's not a defensive measure. I think it's something to say, hey, look, company, we realize it's here. The genie's not coming back in the bottle. We will play because we're not going to be in the back of the line, but we're going to do this the right way. So I think it allows companies to send a really good message to their employees that says, hey, this is the place to work. We're into innovation. We're going to change, but we're going to do it in a thoughtful way. So use policy first. And then they would go, well, Jane in HR's got 9, and Tim in sales has 4, and Eric in operations has 3 ideas, and they get overwhelmed. So we would say 3 rules we have, Zach, that if the CEO could check the 3 boxes, do it. Number 1, does it make the business more efficient? And you'd say, okay, Henry, that sounds nice, but that's like a Hallmark greeting card. What does that mean? Meaning like, and can we KPI that? Can we How do we know it's more efficient? That's one. Two, does it make your workers more productive? Is Zach able to get more done in his 40, 45 hours? Again, how do we know that, right? So you have to set the right measurements. Yeah, sure. So it's efficiency to the business, and how do we know? It's, are the workers more productive, and how do we know? And then if we do 1 and 2 right, we should make more revenue, right? So that's a great way. If you apply those rules, Zach, I think a lot of those 19 little great ideas might fall to the wayside because they don't fit those 3 criteria. So that's the way we look at it.
I think you forget the 4th rule, which is token maxing at all costs.
Yeah. It's funny you say that.
No,
That's
definitely not.
Yeah.
I love that framework though, Henry. It's so easy to digest. That's got to be what separates the winners from the losers right now, right? The ones that are actually getting ROI have thought through these things.
Yeah, Eric, it's like I said to our executives, hey guys, we got to be sober. We got to be non-romantic. We got to be non-emotional about this. And I understand your 16-year-old says, Dad, my colleague at high school built it for this and his dad loves it. And I read a New York Times article and this was on Instagram. So it's a lot of pull. It's a lot of noise. That's why you have to have emotional kind of guardrails to say, great, that's awesome, but this is our plan. And we're sticking to our plan because it's got intelligent design. It fits us. And that's hard to beat.
I imagine one of the things a lot of business owners struggle with, Henry, there's so many options, right? Where do you actually put your money when it comes to AI? And things are moving super fast. The sands are shifting. ROI isn't always obvious up front. How do you help a business owner kind of navigate that uncertainty?
So I always think, Eric, it's got to start at the top. I think today's leaders have got to model what this looks like. And so, if my executives I'm working with, I say, do you use it? And some say no. I say, well, guess what? It starts with you. We got to, if you're going to evangelize, brother, you got to become in the choir, right? So I think being a user and being someone who's head nodding and saying, this is changing my life is a heck of a place to start. Because if they don't do that, then I think your message is really a little bit muddled and there's lack of clarity. And so I think it starts with the leadership. And I think you're right, it is overwhelming. So I say the first thing to do is become a really good practitioner. Talk to your client every day. Have your assistant conversations. And that's another interesting point. We've started to say, don't treat AI like a vending machine. If Zach goes to the vending machine right now, pushes B2, he gets his bag of Cool Ranch Doritos, he takes them out, and that's it. That's our relationship with Google. Our relationship with AI has got to be, it's Tony Stark with Jarvis and Iron Man. It's a conversation. And it's ongoing. It's saying, good try, but I need this. Strike that. Delete this. What are your thoughts? So it needs to be more of a conversation with a true assistant than let me get those Oreos out of the vending machine.
Absolutely. Yeah. I've spoken to a number of clients and told them to stop treating AI like Google, right? It's not a question answer machine. It's a conversation, right? And the more you put into it, the more you're going to get out of it. So for these businesses that are evaluating where to invest, they're going to put some capital into this thing. Have you seen any red flags, or maybe they're technical, maybe they're more anecdotal, but any red flags that are a sign that a company is about to make a bad investment before they do it?
Yeah, I'll go back to what I said a minute ago, Zach. Those companies haven't done the correct assessment. Business metaphor. Eric's going for surgery this afternoon. He's on the table. He's asleep. He's ready to go. Dr. Zach doesn't walk in and go, okay, what do we feel like doing today? Like, patient Eric would have been there for a consultation and blood work. And in other words, there's a sophisticated plan, right? The surgeon didn't just show up. The metaphor in AI is your data ready? Is your technology ready? And maybe most importantly, guys, are your people ready? Do they know what this is and what it isn't? Do they know Zach's not coming to fire them? Zach's coming to augment, not replace. So I think there are building blocks that need to be in place first. Because if you don't do that, you'll be part of I think it was 90% in that MIT study that said AI pilots are failures. And I think that's because the design it was impetuous and it wasn't intellectual. And so I think with a few assessments in the right design pattern, you can beat that.
Henry, I think a lot of folks, are interested in AI. They know they need to be doing it, but they may not have a dedicated in-house team, an IT team. They may be running super lean. Who inside a company should end up owning AI day to day?
That's a really good question. I think a lot of it, Eric, has to do with who's like technologically curious, right? Who goes at home at night on the weekends and they're playing with this stuff on their own. And you know what? That might not be the people that traditional executives think. The finger directly points to the IT department. Well, that's not always the case. Some folks in marketing that are really creative, and some of your sales folks might be more inclined to say, "Look, I don't need direction. I'm gonna jump into this anyway because I'm really interested." But I think it has to start there, because when they have their own hungry appetite, and then you match a company resource or maybe some training courses, or spending some money on sharpening their saw, boy, you have a dangerous person in a good way at the company. So I think it's really putting your finger on who's kind of really interested in this, and you kind of push your own old thinking to say, it might not come from places that you think. And I think those people, Eric, are going to populate all these new jobs today that don't have names. Example. So the automobile came out in 1908. And let's say Zach had one in 1915. And Zach's wife on a Saturday said, "Honey, the buggy is dirty." Well, Zach would have gotten a rag and some water and some soap, and he would have, made the buggy clean. Guys, the car wash didn't open till 1928. But the behaviors Zach was doing in 1915 mirror a car wash. We just didn't call it that. So I think a lot of people are doing these behaviors now, most of the behaviors under corporate roofs. We either don't look at them that way, or we don't call it that. Like a context librarian, for example, or an AI systems engineer. So these titles are coming, and I think it's important that a company figure out like who's really interested, who would work on their own. And then, oh, by the way, if the company would resource you, that would be a great mix. So I think that's the answer.
Yeah, I think we've seen for a lot of smaller companies that are running a little bit lean, it's probably not the person you would think is going to be leading AI initiatives at the company, which I think is really interesting. But it also begs the question, if we're not leveraging traditional IT leadership, how does a small lean team think about governance? How do they think about making sure that people are using it in the right way? How are they measuring it? How are they auditing it? So what have you seen in some of these businesses that might be a little bit more constrained? How have they been effectively governing these processes and these tools?
Yeah, so one, it's in their heads, Zach. They know it's time to play offense, not defense. So if Zach Henry and Eric's little small band of brothers company, maybe we've always kind of complained, oh, if we only had more money, and if we could only compete with that business that does what we do, it's 5 times our size. Those days are over. And it's time for the small U-boat businesses to go right past the Titanics, because the Titanics cannot turn on a dime, and they'll have another meeting to plan another meeting, right? And in the meantime, it's really incumbent upon them to do 2 things. One, their mantra's got to be, it's time to do more with less. Meaning whatever compilation of tasks those small companies have asked their people to do, you need to deconstruct the tasks and then ask the question, can the automation, can the AI take over some of this? And the answer is yes, it can. And the quicker you get there, and again, it's back to that boring, the mundane, and the tedious, the quicker you get there with results, you're going to begin to build momentum that the bigger companies, that's not their DNA. They can't move that quick. So I'd also say for smaller companies, they cannot be afraid to play in some traffic. I mean, now is the time to skin a knee or two, because you can put a Band-Aid on it, but without the skin knee, you don't have the learning of what to do and what not to do. And the business intuition is to say, whoa, let's wait another quarter, guys. Let's bring this up at the November retreat. Well, that's too late. So,
well, let's stay there for a minute, Henry. Let's get specific on timing, because I think this is something a lot of business owners are curious about and just kind of want to hear it straight. Let's just say we're starting at zero. We're starting from scratch, no AI infrastructure, no internal expertise. But what's a realistic timeline for a business like that for AI to actually move the needle for that business?
I think it's yesterday. And I think it has to start with the individual, Eric, really has to become a practitioner. Again, you have to model your behavior to lead the rest of the organization, as small as it may be, because if you don't do that, then you're going to reach a point where they're liking it and they go, wait, I have a question. And then Eric can't answer it because he hasn't done it. So this is, again, it's a little counterintuitive to the way we maybe run business, but now is the time for the leaders to push their chips in the middle, maybe get some individual training, and really become, part of the indoctrinated, to say, wow, okay, this is, I've got an optimism about this. We're going to use it the right way. We're going to be somewhat careful. We're also going to take some chances, kind of a combination. But I just don't see how you do it effectively if you're not leading the way. And that comes with And you know what? The great part about that is, Eric, people will say, okay, well, how do I do that, Henry? I say, ask the LLM. Don't ask me, because it's a lot smarter than I am. So if you've read every book ever written in the history of mankind, you'll know the answer to that. Now, and we talked about prompting. It does matter how you ask, right? But that's going back to Zach and I's comment a minute ago of, don't treat this like Google, because it's not Google. It's a prediction machine that's so much more powerful. So,
Okay, so I've got a question that I've got an answer to, but I really want to hear
okay.
what your thoughts are here. And that is, for someone who's running a business listening to this right now and just thinking we are just already too far behind, what would you tell them?
You're not far behind. You can catch up. I would say my next question would be, do you have an account? Have you tried one? If the answer is no, I'd say get a ChatGPT account, get a free Claude account. Pick your favorite large language model. There's a half dozen really good ones. Choose one, and then set some time aside, because you need to begin to have a conversation. I can help steer those folks, or you guys could, in a way that it opens their eyes to how it helps them. But the answer to that question is their own mindset. It's never too late, because they need to get into the game. But I would say it has to start with their own usage. And it's like, you want to teach a man to fish or feed him, right? I'd rather teach him to fish, because he's gonna be able to sustain himself there. So, what's your answer?
I would say that there's no better time to start than now, and that we are still very much in the early innings here, right? I mean, we're just kind of barely scratching the surface. It feels, if you're in this industry, and I would say it's a bit of an echo chamber, right? When you're in this and you're living it and you're breathing it every day, it can feel like there are people doing things that are so far and away in advance that you'll never catch up. But the reality is, we're still very early in this. There's still a ton of untapped opportunity in places to integrate this technology. And I think 5 years from now, we'll look back at the things we're doing and think, oh, what small ideas we had, right? Like in 5 years, we're not gonna have any ideas. So yes, 100% agree. I just think there's so much opportunity, and we're still very early.
I'm a metaphor guy, so I got another one for you, Zach, because I love the automobile. So the automobile gets here in 1908. Henry Ford rolls off Model T, right, in Dearborn, Michigan. Guys, guess for me. Smooth road. Eric's got the pedal to the metal. How fast do you think that first buggy could go? What was the top end speed, Eric, of the first Model T?
I'm going to go 15 miles an hour.
36. Okay. Now, why does that matter? If Zach and Eric are the most progressive guys back in that era, right? They're on Zach's porch step watching this thing go by, and they go, man, forget Daisy and Bessie. The future is that, whatever they call it, automobile. Okay. Your brains would have still been in an era where it maxes out at 36 miles an hour. So whatever business you were running, you would have that precursor as the limit. Little did they know, within years, that sucker can go as fast as you want it to. What's the metaphor? The metaphor today is people that think they're an AI and say, "Oh, I use it to do my emails." You're living in a world where a car goes 36 miles an hour. It's way bigger than that, right? So I love that metaphor, Zach, because even if you thought you were kind of on the train and progressive and excited about it, man, you were missing it. So I think it's pushing people to learn. It's going to be a lot more powerful than you think.
Henry, I've really enjoyed the conversation today. I think you've shared some wonderful advice with our business owners in the audience out there. What's one quote or piece of advice that's had a meaningful impact on you?
So, Eric, you asked a question a minute ago, or you said it can get real noisy and there's so many choices. Let me strip all that away for the business owners that are listening. At the end of the day, ask yourself, does this help me serve my customer better? That's it, right? Meaning, can I get my cost of goods down? Can I get there quicker? Is it a better product? Can I spend more time with my customer? All the noise, at the end of the day, those are the people paying the bills. And if you need a North Star to say, hey, the lifeblood of this business is customers, right? And so our ability to serve them better is a real simple way to say, okay, that's the go, no go. So I hope that helps people through the deck and say, you know what? Does this help our customer? Yes, no. And if it's a cute, gadgety toy and the answer is no, don't do it. So
absolutely. Makes a ton of sense. Henry, before we close, what's the best way for a listener to connect with you?
Yeah, I'm on LinkedIn a lot. It's Henry Hayes, Hays. I talk about this a lot. And so that's the best way to reach me. I love giving away all kind of resources and prompting guides, and I'm just a big believer. Somebody the other day called me the Paul Revere of AI, and I said, well, "The British aren't coming; the British are here." If that's the metaphor, um, but yeah, I think Zach nailed it a minute ago, Eric, when he said, like, do people think they're too late? You're not too late. There's still time to play, and get in this game. It's going to be great. We're going to live in an abundant age, and everyone can win. But yeah, the best ways on LinkedIn. Henry Hayes, Hays.
And we'll get Anna to drop that link in the show notes as well. That's going to bring us to a close today for this episode of the podcast. If anything that Henry, Zach, or I talked about today resonates with where your business is right now, we are ready to help. Henry's ready to help. You can reach us through the link in the show notes. And if you want to dig deeper into anything we covered today, all the resources will be in that description as well. Thanks a lot for listening, and we'll see you next time.